It's not often a developer works on a game for years, then just announces it and releases it for free straight into the wild. That's exactly what Respawn Entertainment have done with Apex Legends, and let's be honest, they've done a fantastic job. The game is fun, it's got its own twist on the genre, and more than anything it's in a great state at launch. That being said, I do want to talk about some things that I don't like with the game, or things that I think need looking at to ensure that this game is the best that it can be. A bit of feedback and constructive criticism. Just to be clear though, in general I think this game is great, but there are definitely improvements that can be made in my opinion. Let's start with performance and, well, crashes. Sadly, the game is quite unstable for some people, myself included. I played a lot yesterday and the game crashed 6 or 7 times when I was in combat. As you can imagine, that's extremely frustrating, and it seems to be quite random too. From speaking to a few people I know, often it seems like it's an Nvidia RTX card issue, but not everyone is affected. I absolutely know that Respawn will be on this already, ensuring it gets fixed, whatever the problem may be. But I tried old drivers, new drivers, and I just couldn't stop the game from having a mind of its own and crashing. Hopefully this is addressed quickly. I will also mention that the game doesn't run perfectly for everyone. Performance is pretty good across the board, but there are some areas where you get consistent frame drops, and this can feel quite nasty and sluggish on the mouse. And just going back to the crashes for a second, this brings me on to another big issue that I've got with the game: no reconnect. This for me is an absolute must in any battle royale game. Players get disconnected, it happens, especially on PC. Game crashes aside, PCs can crash, you can have a power cut, your internet can drop out, and even on consoles players might lose their Wi-Fi. Whatever the issue might be, players are going to disconnect from games through no fault of their own. And not being able to get back into a game that you've been playing for 10 minutes to join friends where you've been looting and having fights is a huge problem. And this at the moment is compounded of course by the crashing, but the crashing problem would definitely be less annoying if I could at least rejoin the game. With the current setup for the game in trios, and it really makes a difference having a full squad, you need to ensure that players can get back into a game if they drop out for whatever reason. It's got to be in there, and I'm really surprised that it was left out. I hope this isn't a technical problem. And speaking of trios, I think the game absolutely needs solos and duos down the line. I accept that the way this game has been made is around squads of 3, and if you pick legends that work well together, you can have some really epic team play moments, and I would never want to detract or take away from that. But if you want the game to stick around long term, you need to allow players to play solo. I think it's a big thing for the battle royale genre. Some people may worry that the balance of the legends might not work in solos, as players will of course lean towards ones that they prefer, but I don't think any of the characters in this game are particularly better than the others. Plenty of good options for different playstyles, so I don't personally see that being an issue. Part of the appeal of BR games for a lot of people is grinding to get the most amount of wins in their region or a certain rank or whatever it might be, and a lot of those players like to play solo and not rely on their friends being online or potentially relying on randoms that they don't know. Of course the game has been designed with trios in mind, and that's great, but I think it would definitely be wise to allow solos and duos down the line. Not everyone wants to play with randoms all the time. I reckon it's going to be their most requested feature. Next, leaderboards to track wins, stats, and all of the rest of that stuff would be pretty cool, but not absolutely required. Now let's talk about weapon balance. I know the game's only been out for a few days yet, so I'm not going to claim that we need to make fleeting changes, but I do think that most players would agree that the SMGs are pretty weak right now. Most of the time, if you don't have an extended mag on them, it really is just reload simulator. I think they perhaps need at least looking at going forward, because right now I'm not sure that they've got a real place. And the Peacemaker shotgun is by far the best general shotgun in the game, unless of course you're lucky enough to find the Gold Mastiff, which is just amazing. The Wingman is also crazy good too. Maybe a bit too much, we'll see. Part of the issue with the SMGs could be down to a few things though. I mentioned this in my initial impressions video, but I do feel like overall the bullet velocity in the game is quite slow. Even with some assault rifles, I feel like you've got to lead quite a lot. You can see the projectiles moving and dipping. Now you could say, well, this makes the gunplay good because guns can't immediately drop you at crazy distances, but I still can't help but feel the assault rifles should have a bit more velocity to their shots. I also find ammo to be a real issue in early and mid game. End game really isn't a problem as you come across plenty of ammo from downed players, but often early and mid game you can be really struggling for ammo on most of your weapons. Combine that with the fact that players take a lot of bullets to kill often engaging players for quite some time with them constantly regenerating health and shield. And while we're on that topic, let's talk about shields and the armor system. So right now you can pick up any number of different armor types. You can get a normal or white armor, which will give you 2 shield bars, and then a blue armor offers up to 3 bars, and then a legendary, which is purple, or epic, which is gold, offers up to 4 shield bars. If you lose part of your armor or even full armor, you can regenerate it straight back up to full. You can find these little blue small shield generators that will regen 1 bar at a time. You can get one which will do a few more, or even the Phoenix canisters that will give you full health and shield back in one go. I've noticed that in any one game there is a crazy abundance of shields around, and it really means that when you get into an engagement with an enemy, if they get behind cover, you know that they're going to be regaining some of their shield and health back in a few seconds. It does of course take a small amount of time to get that back, so aggressive play is definitely rewarded, but I can't help but feel that the abundance of the shield canisters is a bit too much. In Fortnite, for example, you can carry large shield potions and small ones, so you can regen shield, but you're far more limited in how many you can carry compared to Apex. I did have an idea though. What about this? Let's say you've got a blue armor that has 3 bars of shield maximum. If that shield gets damaged by say 1 or 2 bars, that's fine, you can regen it to full again. But if you lose all of those bars of shield and it gets destroyed all the way to the bottom, you will permanently lose one of those bars. So then instead of 3, you can only max it out to 2 bars. And I'm saying this because I feel like there needs to be a penalty for an enemy destroying your entire shield. And I think this would work because it would offer up some interesting situations as well, because gold armor in Apex actually comes with perks too. For example, the gold armor has a passive perk whereby if you execute an enemy, you regain full shield. This could leave you in a situation where you've got a gold armor that's been damaged, but you're considering either changing out for another or keeping it for the passive perk. Just a thought. Because I really feel like the fact that you can always fully regen your armor if you've got enough shield canisters is just prolonging the firefight so much, to the point where it's getting ridiculous how many bullets you've got to put inside a target before you put them down over the period of a firefight. And that's also compounding the issue with the ammo. I also think the spectator camera needs some serious improvements. Right now, God forbid you die and end up watching a teammate, the camera is often so laggy and it makes watching teammates just quite unpleasant. I'm not sure if this is to do with the server tick rate or a bug or something else, as sometimes the camera can be okay and watchable. If they want Apex to become an esport in some way, shape or form, which it seems that they are really keen on, then this area needs improvement. People won't accept watching if the spectator camera is laggy like that. There are also a few other smaller issues I have. Head bob is one. It's a bit extreme. I really wish that this was turned down a bit, or even just give us a slider. When explosions are going off, I feel though the screen shake is a bit too much and could be toned down with the Bangalore artillery strike and Gibraltar airstrike, whatever it is. I also noticed that the voice over IP quality wasn't great either. And by isn't great, I mean that it was really bad, and you would expect it to be pretty good for a squad-based battle royale game. Way worse than I would have thought it'd be. That being said, the ping system, yes, we know that's a great way for players to communicate even without voice over IP, but the quality needs improving. I also noticed that when players die, their crates are quite a large size and they can often block doorways and other passages. I'm not sure if this is a good gameplay mechanic or just annoying, a bit of an oversight, but for the most part, I find it quite annoying, especially when you're trying to get into a small hut or room to help a teammate who's needing a revive or in trouble in a fight. Moving on, this isn't really a complaint, but I think it would be really good if when you're selecting your character, maybe the game gave you suggestions for other characters that worked well with it. They did this in Overwatch, so for instance, if I selected Wraith and the game would then tell my teammates, well, this character goes really well with that. Nothing huge, but could be something useful for players solo matchmaking in with random squads. Wrapping things up, related to networking. When I went to the capture event in LA last week, I was very lucky and I got to speak to some of the developers and producers that work on this game. And I asked one of the guys I spoke to, I think his name was Drew, he's one of the lead guys on the game, what the tick rate of this game was. And he said he thought that at the moment it was running at 20. Now, whilst I haven't really noticed that many problems with hit reg and netcode in the game, there's been a bit of lag from time to time, especially at the start of the game. It feels like they've got some kinks to iron out there, but I do think that for a multiplayer game with guns that fire at rapid rates of fire, perhaps 20 is a bit too low. And I wouldn't be surprised if over time we start to see some clips of bad hit reg or people dying around corners, and it could be that having a tick rate as low as 20 is to blame for that. I don't know, I'm not into the technicalities of this game, so I'm unawares, but I'd say that really they'd want to be aiming for 60 if you look at other comparative games like CSGO and Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5 on PC. Perhaps some clarity and more information on that could be a good thing. And that's all for today, guys. All in all, this game has really impressed a lot of us. They announced yesterday that they've had 10 million players log into the game in 3 days, 72 hours, which is just a crazy number for a new game, a new IP. Most of all, the most important thing for me is that it's fun and addictive. I think that Respawn have really nailed Apex as a whole, and with a few tweaks and regular content drops, it could easily be a game that stays around for a very long time. And that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't like it, dislike it, not a problem. Thank you for watching, guys. Subscribe if you want to see more, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.